The Los Angeles Clippers, a name that, for decades, stood more for misfortune than for basketball greatness. Before they became one of the most hyped teams in the NBA, the Clippers were simply the league's biggest punchline. Their story begins not in Los Angeles, but in San Diego, where the team struggled for relevance and identity. In 1984, they were relocated to LA, but this move didn't change their fate. For nearly 3 decades, the Clippers lived in the shadow of the Lakers, a team stacking championships while the Clippers barely made the playoffs. In their first 28 years, the Clippers made the postseason only 6 times. They were known more for terrible draft picks than wins, passing on legends like Vince Carter, Dirk Nowitzki, and Paul Pierce. They were never considered title contenders, never seen as a serious franchise. But that narrative changed, at least it looked like it did in 2009. That year, the Clippers landed the #1 pick in the NBA draft and selected Blake Griffin, a high-flying forward out of Oklahoma who was expected to change the team's future. Unfortunately, Griffin missed his entire rookie season with an injury, and the resurgence was put on pause. But when he finally debuted in 2010, he didn't disappoint. Blake Griffin exploded onto the scene with rim-shattering dunks and gravity-defying athleticism. He was a must-watch player and went on to win Rookie of the Year. Yet despite his rise, the Clippers still weren't good enough. They needed more. Enter Chris Paul. In 2011, the Clippers made a blockbuster trade to bring in the all-star point guard. Suddenly, Lob City was born. With Paul running the offense, Griffin finishing above the rim, and DeAndre Jordan protecting it, the Clippers were no longer a laughingstock. They were Showtime, just not the Lakers version. In the lockout-shortened 2011-12 season, the Clippers finished 5th in the West and stunned the Grizzlies in the playoffs with one of the most unforgettable comebacks in Game 1. They advanced to the second round, where they got swept by the Spurs, but hope had returned. For the first time in decades, the Clippers looked like contenders. By 2013, the team added depth with Jamal Crawford, and DeAndre Jordan emerged as a defensive beast. Chris Paul was the floor general, and Blake Griffin had matured into a full-blown star. They were winning games, drawing attention and slowly taking the spotlight in Los Angeles. But this was the Los Angeles Clippers, and if history had taught us anything, it's that hope doesn't last long here. The Lob City Clippers had arrived, and expectations were sky-high. By the 2012-13 season, they weren't just entertaining, they were dominating. With Chris Paul orchestrating the offense, Blake Griffin bringing the power, and DeAndre Jordan anchoring the paint, the Clippers were considered one of the most dangerous teams in the Western Conference. They won 56 games that season and looked like true contenders. But when the playoffs came around, the story began to change. They took a 2-0 lead over the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round, only to watch it evaporate. Blake Griffin went down with an ankle injury, and the team lost 4 straight games, crashing out in 6. That early exit planted the first real seed of doubt. Could this team truly handle pressure? Big changes came next. The Clippers made headlines by trading for head coach Doc Rivers, a proven winner from his days in Boston. They also added sharpshooter J.J. Redick and were more balanced than ever. In the 2013-14 season, they won 57 games, a franchise record, and stormed into the playoffs full of confidence. But just as things were looking up, a dark cloud descended. In the middle of the playoffs, disturbing recordings of team owner Donald Sterling surfaced. He was caught making racist remarks, including comments about Magic Johnson. The backlash was immediate. The NBA was rocked. The Clippers players staged silent protests by turning their warm-ups inside out, visibly distancing themselves from the owner who embarrassed the entire franchise. Despite the chaos, they pushed forward. They defeated the Warriors in a 7-game thriller, then faced the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second round. With the series tied 2-2, the Clippers were up 7 points with under a minute left in Game 5. And then it happened. A series of baffling mistakes. A turnover by Chris Paul. Fouls. Poor decisions. The Clippers blew the game, and then lost the series in 6. The dream was over again. By 2015, redemption was the only goal. The Clippers faced the defending champion San Antonio Spurs in the first round in what became an all-time playoff battle. It went 7 games, and with the season on the line, Chris Paul, playing through a hamstring injury, delivered a legendary buzzer beater to win Game 7. It felt like their time had finally come. Next up, the Houston Rockets. The Clippers went up 3-1 in the series. Just 1 win away from their first ever Western Conference Finals. Just 1 win. And then another collapse. In Game 6, with a 19-point second-half lead, the Clippers folded. Josh Smith and Corey Brewer, not even the Rocket stars, buried them. The Clippers lost Game 6. Then Game 7. And just like that, they were out. Again. The narrative was no longer just about talent, it was about failure. This was no longer bad luck. It felt like something deeper. Something cursed. In the years that followed, the team kept trying to run it back. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan stayed together, but cracks began to show. Injuries mounted. Locker room tension rose. Playoff exits continued. In 2016, both Griffin and Paul got injured in the same playoff series against the Trail Blazers. The Clippers lost in 6. In 2017, they fell to the Utah Jazz, again in the first round. Again in 7 games. Again after Blake Griffin got hurt. The Lob City era had run its course. After 6 seasons, multiple All-Stars, and endless highlights, the Clippers had 0 conference finals appearances to show for it. They couldn't get over the hump. Chris Paul had enough. He demanded a trade and joined the Houston Rockets. Lob City was dead. The core was broken. And the idea of a curse? It wasn't just fan talk anymore. It felt real. With the Lob City era officially buried, the Los Angeles Clippers entered uncharted territory. Chris Paul was gone. Blake Griffin was traded. DeAndre Jordan walked. And for the first time in years, the team had no stars, just heart, hustle, and a chip on their shoulder. But instead of fading into irrelevance, they adapted. Led by scrappy veterans like Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell, and Tobias Harris, the 2018-19 Clippers shocked the NBA. They weren't supposed to make the playoffs, but they did. They weren't supposed to challenge the defending champion Golden State Warriors, but they pushed them to 6 games and pulled off the biggest comeback in NBA playoff history. They didn't win the series, but they made a statement. The Clippers were rebuilding the right way. And then everything changed. In the summer of 2019, the NBA world was rocked. 2 seismic moves turned the Clippers from gritty underdogs to instant title favorites. First, Kawhi Leonard, fresh off leading the Raptors to a championship, chose the Clippers over the Lakers. But he didn't come alone. In a stunning late-night blockbuster, the Clippers traded a mountain of draft picks and young players to acquire Paul George from Oklahoma City. The Clippers now had 2 elite two-way wings, arguably the best duo in basketball. The media went wild. Clippers fans rejoiced. For the first time ever, the Clippers were the talk of the town, even more than the Lakers. Opening night of the 2019-20 season, Clippers beat the Lakers. Christmas Day, Clippers beat the Lakers again. Kawhi even starred in a New Balance commercial with the message clear. This is my city now. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George were often out due to load management. Chemistry was inconsistent. And while they finished second in the West with a strong 49-23 record, doubts lingered heading into the playoffs, held in the Orlando bubble due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In round 1, the Clippers faced Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. It should have been easy, but Luka had other plans. Despite being outmatched on paper, Doncic dominated the series and even hit a buzzer-beating 3 in Game 4 to tie the series 2-2. The Clippers eventually won in 6, but alarm bells were ringing. The defense wasn't sharp. The chemistry wasn't clicking. Still, they moved on. Round 2, the Denver Nuggets. Everyone expected the Clippers to breeze through. Denver had just come off a grueling 7-game series. The Clippers jumped out to a 3-1 series lead, needing just one more win to reach the first Western Conference Finals in franchise history. And then disaster. Game 5, the Clippers blew a 16-point lead in the second half. Game 6, they blew a 19-point lead. Game 7, they didn't even show up. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George combined for 0 points in the fourth quarter. The Clippers, championship favorites, had collapsed again. For the 3rd time in franchise history, they blew a 3-1 series lead. This time, it felt different. This wasn't just bad luck. This was an epic failure of expectations, ego, and execution. The Clippers weren't just cursed. They were haunted. The media buried them. The Lakers went on to win the championship, reclaiming the city once again. Kawhi Leonard, the silent assassin, said nothing. Paul George faced the wrath of memes and critics. And head coach Doc Rivers was fired, his 7-year tenure ending without a single trip to the conference finals. The most talented Clippers team in history had just authored the biggest choke job in modern NBA history. And as the dust settled, one question echoed louder than ever. Is this franchise truly cursed? After the historic collapse in the bubble, the Clippers were no longer viewed as favorites. Their reputation? Tarnished. Their chemistry? Questioned. But the 2020-21 season offered a shot at redemption, and surprisingly, they took it. With a shorter season and less room for error, the Clippers locked in. They finished as the 4th seed in the West and once again faced the Dallas Mavericks in the first round. Luka Doncic, now a full-blown superstar, took a 2-0 lead over the Clippers. Fans and critics assumed the worst. But Kawhi Leonard responded like a true champion. He went nuclear in the final games of the series, averaging over 30 points per game, locking down on defense and dragging the Clippers to a Game 7 victory. Then came the Utah Jazz, the number 1 seed in the West. And again, Kawhi shined. He dominated in the first 4 games, until disaster struck. In Game 4, Leonard bumped knees with Joe Ingles, and the news was crushing: a torn ACL. He was out indefinitely. Most assumed the Clippers were finished. But then came a surprising twist. Paul George stepped up. PG carried the team past Utah, including a historic Game 5 performance. In Game 6, role player Terrence Mann exploded for 39 points, helping the Clippers complete a 25-point comeback and send the Jazz home. Finally, after 50 years of existence, the Clippers reached the Western Conference Finals for the first time in franchise history. It felt like the curse had been lifted. But reality came crashing back. Without Kawhi, they simply couldn't match the firepower of Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns. The Clippers fought hard, but lost in 6 games. The dream run ended short of the finals, again. The following season was a roller coaster. Kawhi missed the entire year. Paul George missed most of it. Still, the team managed to stay competitive and squeezed into the play-in tournament. But they lost to the Timberwolves, then the Pelicans, and missed the playoffs altogether. By 2022-23, both stars returned. The Clippers added John Wall, Norman Powell, and Robert Covington, building a deep, veteran-heavy roster. But the injury curse returned. Kawhi and PG were in and out of the lineup. Wall struggled. Chemistry suffered. At the trade deadline, the Clippers took a bold swing. They acquired Russell Westbrook, a former MVP, now written off by most of the league. Ironically, the same Westbrook who clashed with the Lakers found new life with the Clippers. His energy was contagious. His hustle? Unmatched. In the first round of the playoffs, they faced Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and the Suns. Game 1 was a thriller. Kawhi and Russ led the team to a huge win. But Kawhi, once again, tore his meniscus in Game 2. He was done. Paul George didn't even play the series. And despite Westbrook's best efforts, the Clippers lost in 5. It was the same story again. High hopes, higher talent, and a heartbreak ending. Fast forward to the 2023-24 season, and the Clippers made another massive move. In a blockbuster trade, they acquired James Harden, the 2018 MVP. For the first time in NBA history, a team featured 4 former All-NBA superstars: Harden, Westbrook, George, and Kawhi. The basketball world watched closely. Could this team finally make a run? They had moments of brilliance: 50 wins, the most since 2017. Harden ran the offense smoothly. Paul George looked sharp. Kawhi, when healthy, remained a two-way force. But again, injuries. In the playoffs, Kawhi missed multiple games, and when he played, he wasn't himself. Harden and George tried to carry the load, but they simply couldn't match Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving in the first round. The Clippers lost in 6. And once again, it ended in disappointment. 4 stars. No finals appearance. 15 years of Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Harden, Westbrook. Still nothing. No banners. No rings. Not even one trip to the NBA Finals. Now, with aging stars, expiring contracts, and uncertainty surrounding the roster, the question lingers louder than ever. Is this just bad luck, or are the Clippers truly cursed? 40 years of near misses, of injuries, of broken dreams, of playoff heartbreak. And so we end where we began, with a question that has haunted this franchise from day one. Will the curse of the Los Angeles Clippers ever be broken?